Yes, Honorable Melissa Scared Popon, you're recognized. You may proceed. I see you are ready. All right. All
I've
right.
been ready, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me to refer to my notes because there's so many things happening in housing and in Roseau Central. I want to make sure that I capture every single thing.
Yeah, permission granted. You may proceed.
Thank you. I'll tell you. I'll let you know. I would like to offer warm greetings to the esteemed members of this honorable house, as well as the exceptional individuals who make up the dedicated and supportive constituency of Roseau Central. And I'm aware that many of them are listening today. And they ask, what's in it for me? So I encourage all of you to remain engaged because there is something from everyone in this 1.4 billion budget. Today, I want to express my endorsement on the budget put forth in this House by the Minister of Finance, Honorable Irving McIntyre. The budget proposal reflects a comprehensive report by highlighting our gains and forging ahead with continued development, all in an effort to elevate the lives of every citizen in Dominica. Mr. Speaker, I stand before you not just as a representative of the government, but as a champion for progress, resilience, and opportunities in housing and urban development. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development is at the forefront of unfolding the dynamic Dominica. And I am proud to say that we have had a remarkable year. We are making great strides. However, I must admit that climate change and the erratic weather patterns has kept us on our toes. But I want to assure the public that as our weather patterns evolve, so too we are adapting. And we shall remain steadfast in building new homes and implementing new resilient methods to mitigate against climate change. Our aim, Mr. Speaker, is to become the first climate resilient country. And we are consistently assessing our housing stock, making recommendations where necessary in order to make resilience a Dominican way of life. In fact, as we currently speak, we have been in collaboration with the World Bank and Build Change, and there is an ongoing survey which is going across the country in which technical professionals are sent out and they're examining the resilience of our homes, our construction practices of diverse houses, and to establish a modernized standard for construction, retrofitting, and upkeep. Mr. Speaker, in what is forecasted to be an active hurricane season, we are doing everything that we can in the ministry to fast-track processes for those who desire to build and enforce as well the resilient building codes. At this moment, Mr. Speaker, there are 10 housing sites that are currently under construction in Dominica. And these developments will offer a total of 245 units. Essentially, we are building resilient settlements across Dominica. We have housing sites that are nearing completion in the North Penville, in Vacas and Pebush, Woodford Hill as well, coming down on the west coast, Kenfield East, and Trafalgar in interior. Then we get to Point Michelle and Scottshead and Grand Bay. And then we just commenced our 10th site, Mr. Speaker. You know, a couple months ago, I called my dear colleague, Honorable Shakira, and I said, you know what? Roseau South must be the next major housing in Dominica. Because she has been very patient, Mr. Speaker. And I know that her constituents have been waiting eagerly. And the time has come for Roseau South to benefit from our housing revolution. I am pleased to announce that in the span of just a couple months and a quick response from MMC, we now have a massive housing site in Egliston. The foundations have been laid, the walls are coming up, there are 2 levels of individual homes, garden-style apartments with stunning picturesque views of the Caribbean Sea. Fort Young Hotel, you can see the lights in Roseau as well, Mr. Speaker. You know, it's a wonderful sight. And I must say, you know, they say we have to save the best for last. Well, every last one keeps getting better and better. And I want to tell the member of the Roseau South constituency that the value of property in your area, in that area, is going to significantly increase with the state-of-the-art project. It is going to be a truly magnificent asset, Mr. Speaker. So far, we have injected about 4.5 million into these homes. And that does not even include the Great Walls of Eggleston that has already been built in the same area, yes. Additionally, we also have plans and have already identified location for more housing in St. Joseph, yes, in Collier, yes, in Tebow, in Castle Bruce, yes, and Roseau Central, Mr. Speaker. The proof is in the pudding, Mr. Speaker. We don't give false promises and don't follow up, Mr. Speaker. We deliver. We remain committed to providing housing across Dominica where no man is left behind. The Bible recognizes that affordable housing is a basic human right. So when they're busy walking, we're building. When they're talking, we're tiling. And when they're watching, we're stepping it up a notch, Mr. Speaker. And while they do nothing, we're busy doing something. Again this year, Mr. Speaker, I'm being told by hurricane shelter managers that just now they're going to be irrelevant because they see a drastic decrease in the number of individuals who are seeking refuge during this hurricane season. You know why that is, Mr. Speaker? This is because every home that we build now is in fact a private, lifelong hurricane shelter. Mr. Speaker, with the efforts of MMC and the major other construction companies, we've seen tangible outcomes in Woodford Hill and Eggleston, and it speaks volumes to our progress. With the Prime Minister's visionary approach to build back better and to harness our local skills, we have employed and empowered hundreds of local contractors across Dominica. Mr. Speaker, a construction worker who could only build a step in 2020 now has a construction expertise, experience, and knowledge to now present himself as a qualified contractor. Hundreds of families across Dominica have benefited from our housing boom, not just in skills development, but socioeconomic gains. And of course, the receipt of the greatest asset called a home. Mr. Speaker, one of our most criticized projects in housing happens to be our most successful projects. The opposition forces are the ones who are criticizing this project. Mr. Speaker, this is the Housing Recovery Project. This owner-driven implementation approach is one of the first of its kind globally that the World Bank has funded, serving as a model for other countries. And under this program, modern concrete homes are being built free of charge on the property of the owner. Mr. Speaker, where else would a government give such a massive asset to a family? And that is because the Roosevelt-Skerry-led administration cares about the well-being and the growth of its citizens. And I want to tell them that we have achieved remarkable milestones. We had 320 construction starts, 253 practical completions, 231 homes were handed over. The HRP project, Mr. Speaker, stands as a beacon of hope because it is in this project we ended up assisting 147 households in regularizing their land tenure status. This is a major achievement, Mr. Speaker. Additionally, I hope they're listening, because the ministry anticipates awarding 108 contracts to construct homes, including those in the East Coast relocation and as well as the original housing recovery project. This will be the largest number of awards ever undertaken during this time frame, and so we are gearing up for that, Mr. Speaker. We recently had an increase in the construction grant ceiling from 140,000 to 150,000. And so we expect contractors to be more financially empowered and to take up on larger and more ambitious projects. And I must say that I have to commend the HRP staff under the dictatorship of Dr. Genora Joseph, who confront the challenges head on, fueled by the belief that no obstacle is insurmountable. I must commend Dr. Joseph. I enjoy collaborating with people like that because where obstacles do not impede our progress and no hiccup will stop our work. Mr. Speaker, we are about tangible improvements in the lives of our citizens. Families have better homes, communities will see enhanced facilities, they will be more resilient and prepared for the future and the climate. The increase in the construction grant ceiling will spur innovation, attract new investment, and most importantly, create a ripple effect of prosperity across greater sectors. Mr. Speaker, we give our best, and we give the gift of a safe, resilient home, and that is because that is how we ourselves would want to live. It's exactly how we would want our children to live, to be free from anxiety and fear of survival during a storm. And Mr. Speaker, I just had my summer camp, and I asked the children, how did you pan out during Tropical Storm Beryl? And they said to me, well, we ate all our snacks and we fell asleep. And that is what we want to hear from every elderly person, every family, every child in Dominica, that whether it is a hurricane or a storm, you can sleep soundly and you don't have to worry about your roof being removed, Mr. Speaker, and question your survival. And Mr. Speaker, that is why I say, that day will come where every single citizen across the hills and valleys of Dominica will stand up with no fear to a Cat 5 hurricane, untouched, unmoved, and unaffected. In the heart of the Kalinago territory, our commitment to resilience shines bright. 36 homes handed over and 6 more under construction. We have been a bit delayed due to the structure of the land tenure issue in the Kalinago territory and access to the site of the beneficiaries. But with the help of the NAO, we rise above that and we are making things happen, Mr. Speaker. And so in the coming year, in collaboration with the ministry responsible for Kalinago upliftment, as well as the Kalinago Council, my ministry will explore the creation of both a land use development plan and a cadastral plan for the Kalinago territory. Mr. Speaker, I see more development before me. Every year, I see more skilled tradesmen climbing the career ladder. I see more economic growth, and I see jobs and jobs and jobs and more jobs in this sector, Mr. Speaker. For example, when I speak to the contractors, when I go on site, I always have conversations with the contractors. They have an average of 5 to 6 workers, some of them as much as 10 workers on the site. And if you do the math on these new contracts that are to come, when you calculate, that is a minimum of 400, maybe to a maximum of 800 workers. And Mr. Speaker, that is not taking into consideration the ladies who will come on site to cook for the men and offer lunch, to sell their snacks, and the outsourcing of concrete firms to come and pour their concrete for them, Mr. Speaker. I've been on site and I've seen teenagers helping their parents to tile and learning how to tile, and how to paint, Mr. Speaker. This is a skill that they will have for life. And it's an opportunity for them to learn and make a business out of this on the side when they grow older and help them to earn a living, Mr. Speaker. In the last year, we successfully handed over 136 homes, and we are looking to complete and hand over 349 homes. If you do the math again, Mr. Speaker, where you'd say you have an average of 3 people per household, this means you'd have about 1,500 people living in brand new homes from last year, and this year coming in resilient, hurricane-proof homes in Dominica. This is a working government that responds to the needs of its people. Forging ahead, we have successfully regularized the squatter status of many families across the country. And we are gearing up to address the long-standing issue of the Melvin Hall squatter subdivision and Layu Valley. And Mr. Speaker, we are ensuring that there are lots of people who have been squatting on government land for 10, even 20 years. And now they'll be given the opportunity to purchase this land at a subsidized rate, enabling them to own land, own a piece of Dominica, and to build generational wealth with their children. Looking ahead, we also plan to construct 108, including the East Coast relocation, 8 homes under the Kalinago post-Hurricane Maria project, and the start of 2 additional homes in the Marigot constituency. And speaking of Marigot, Mr. Speaker, you know, after the member for Marigot spoke today, you know, I gave 2 claps, only 2 claps. Because it's not that I support the proposals that were he posed to the House today, but the fact that he never mentioned the housing needs of his people. Not even in a negative way that they usually do, you know, Mr. Speaker. And so that means that I am doing a remarkable job, so I give myself 2 claps. But no, he didn't mention housing. That means things good. Things good. Things working out. Because they like to complain. They like to highlight the negative things. Once it's negative, they want to talk about it. If it's positive, they don't want to mention it. But it begs me to wonder, Mr. Speaker, does he really care about the people of Marigot? Because not once did he make an appeal for housing for his people. And I know that the most pressing issue for the people of the Marigot constituency is housing. The Prime Minister gave him extra time to be able to speak on the behalf of his people, Mr. Speaker, in the highest court of the land. And not one time did you ask for one house for somebody in your constituency. But instead, you want a house where men can visit prostitutes. You ask for a brothel. But you ask for a brothel. And this is his 2nd time he's coming to this house and asking for a brothel. He's not asking for homes. But he's serious about it because this is 2nd time he's mentioning it. He's asking for this, Mr. Speaker. He's not asking for a house. He's asking for cosmetic surgery here. And I'm assuming that when you speak of cosmetic surgery and brothels, it must be the Brazilian butt lifts and the breast augmentation, because that's what aligns with brothels. You know, I don't know where the member of Marigot was really going with this. And, you know, at one point, I thought he would maybe start offering Rasta recovery baths for the BBLs. You know, I mean, that is where his conversation was going. But, Mr. Speaker, this is a man. This is a man who said today that the man is the head of the home. I agree. Yes, that is a fact. The member is a man. He's a father. He's a leader of the Commonwealth of Marigot. And this is what he proposes for the young women of Marigot to get involved in, to prostitutes in a brothel. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that he's more interested in fulfilling his own personal desires and not really addressing the core issues of the people who put him in this place to represent them. He says woman time, like it is a bad thing. Oh, too many PSs are women and we're in high positions. Yes, indeed, it is woman time. Maybe it is a woman that is needed to be able to champion the cause for the people of Marigot. So I'm willing to offer my help, Mr. Speaker. I can help put the member of Marigot to work. We have lots of work in the Ministry of Housing. In fact, I can put you, I came here, Mr. Speaker, a year ago appealing to all members here to tap into this program of we're providing free hurricane ties in abundance in the Ministry of Housing, Mr. Speaker. None of them tapped into this program, not one of them. I can give you a pallet of hurricane ties and screws and nails. You can do your whole village, member for Marigot. You can prevent a whole roof from flying away, Mr. Speaker, in this wind. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge, I urge him to do some constructive things. Come in the ministry, we have work to do. We have plenty things to do. You can do your whole village. Instead of doing nothing, we can do something. So let us do something constructive. Mr. Speaker, we recently conducted tracer exercises in the Kolibistri area, focusing on families whose homes were either completely destroyed or who face vulnerability to return. The government supported the relocation of some families to Platmopier, while a few families were relocated to Grand Savan. And now we have 3 remaining families that we have to take care of. Additionally, we are advancing proposals for new residential subdivisions at Cabana View in Wesley, near the International Airport, which is formerly known as Jumbie Peace. Also Castle Bruce and Warner, with a total of 173 lots that will be available for sale. Mr. Speaker, as promised, we are safeguarding the lives of the East Coast relocation and the resettlement of Petit Soufriere, Good Hope, and Saint-Sauveur, particularly after the trough in 2022. Mr. Speaker, we often I don't know why people in Dominica like to compare Dominica to the USA and other first world countries. And they often like to compare our housing programs to those like the US. But it's essential to understand the unique economic, historical, and social context that shape each nation's approach. So allow me to explain the approach in Dominica that we have that is both appropriate and beneficial. In the US, for example, Mr. Speaker, social housing varies across quality, different states and cities. And so their system includes subsidizing rents in privately owned homes and free apartment style housing in what is sometimes called the projects. However, they regularly reassess the eligibility for social housing, which can lead to serious mental stress. So yes, you live in free housing, but imagine the anxiety you face every year because the government have to come and reassess your housing and see, and you could face the news of being disqualified for social housing, and you could be kicked out of your home just because maybe your financial situation increases slightly, even though you still cannot afford market rate rent. In some countries, Mr. Speaker, in the UK, often the rate that is paid for subsidized rent is against their income. And it's interesting to note that in first world countries, they're manufacturing construction materials. We don't manufacture construction materials here. They can print their own currency, Mr. Speaker, yet still such strict regulations are in place for social housing. If they have to evict someone due to a waiting list of more needy individuals, it speaks volumes to their circumstances. So rather than criticizing our housing program that has been working for our people, other islands are trying to actually emulate what we are doing here. So that is why we have to appreciate what our neighbors get, our friends, our families, our members, our parents, that they can live in greater comfort, assured that this government will never force them out of their homes. We will never put them on the streets, Mr. Speaker. My friends, the grass is not always greener on the other side. But we must thank God for small mercies. Because if the government is providing relief to your grandmother, for example, by exempting her from paying rent, and all she has to worry about is just her utility bills, say thank God for these privileges, because it is a blessing. Mr. Speaker, this government's housing revolution agenda has a strong biblical foundation. Jeremiah 29 says, build houses and settle down, plant gardens and eat what you grow in them, marry and have children. That is why we will never stop helping to rebuild. We will never stop providing free housing, affordable housing for our people. And now, Mr. Speaker, we are targeting our working class to give them a hand up by providing land at a subsidized rate with low-cost building options and pre-approved mortgage rates from the banks, which I will speak about later, Mr. Speaker. In March, my ministry recognized and hosted the first ever Housing Resilience Financing Symposium. And this event brought together about 80 stakeholders of various sectors, highlighting our efforts to building a resilient housing sector. It's been a great challenge in the housing agenda as many of our families lack formal land ownership documents and a significant number live in highly exposed areas. And so in response to this symposium, we continue to assist Dominicans to obtain formal land ownership documents, and we'll also increase awareness of the importance of affordable home insurance. Our plans for the next year include training programs for construction professionals. We want to build capacity and to equip our tradesmen with the skills and to implement modern resilient practices. We're at a critical time in our nation's development. And as we face climate change, we must not only prepare ourselves for severe hurricanes, but for flooding, earthquakes, heat waves, droughts, intense wildfires, Mr. Speaker, and other natural disasters that we could potentially face. But together with our strategic partnership, we will build a stronger and more resilient Dominica. Our home renovation and sanitation program embodies the Labour Party's commitment to better living. And through the efforts of the Prime Minister, I am pleased to announce that we are gearing up to renovate and build on privately owned land about 100 homes across Dominica. I'm relieved, Mr. Speaker, because I have quite, and many of my colleagues have been waiting because we all have quite a few requests for home renovations. But this time, Mr. Speaker, we're going big. God is good. A project delayed is not a project denied. We have successfully eradicated our pit latrines, while some countries, other Caribbean countries, are now starting this program, Mr. Speaker. Now they're starting to want to eradicate pit latrines. But I want to say that in the event that we have missed anybody across Dominica, I urge you to visit the Ministry of Housing, because I give you my word, we will upgrade you with modern restrooms right away, Mr. Speaker. Our citizens are eager to purchase properties and to construct buildings. Young professionals, they want to buy because they want to build. Earlier this year, the Ministry of Housing advertised prime land owned by government, which is now for sale at competitive prices. We are in the process of cutting lots in the Jimmet area. And I must say that with the new housing lots currently being subdivided in the Jimmet, we have received considerable interest. I don't know how we are going to go through the task of choosing 37 applications from a list of over 400 applicants, Mr. Speaker. And these are people who are qualified, who have the financial backing to purchase the land. Our road and drainage works have also begun in Warner. We have further projects at Hillsborough Gardens in St. Joseph, Cotton Hill, Casabruce, and we are offering lots for sale at great prices, Mr. Speaker, in Platma Pier, Kenfield East, Grand Bay. We have a few pocket areas in Georgetown, Portsmouth, Lily Valley, Belvirol, Stock Farm, and Emsall. Young people, build what you can afford. Think of your future and invest in yourself. A house and land are the greatest assets that you can own, and your government is here to support you in this endeavor. In our efforts to provide the lots for sale to public officers and young professionals, we have achieved commendable success. We have allocated so far 50 lots during this period. And initiatives like the Nursing the Dream and the Landlocks program, we're offering favorable rates and conditions for mortgages and budget packages. To empower our people, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development has established strategic partnerships with the National Bank of Dominica and the National Cooperative Credit Union to facilitate government land sale program and to introduce customized financial agreements to stimulate more homeownership. Mr. Speaker, this partnership aims to provide financial packages to public servants, young professionals, and the Dominica diaspora as well, to support residential and commercial construction on Crown lands offered at concessionary rates. So starting next month, you will see promotions at an attractive offer. It's going to be like a one-stop shop. We want it to be easy, where the stress and the challenges of building a home within a tight budget are completely eliminated. So I have met with the financial institutions, NCCU and NBD, and pre-negotiated a low mortgage rate specifically for this program. And it's an easy three-step process. All you need to do, you select your land for construction, you choose from the available designs that we have, 2 and 3 bedrooms, and then you opt for a mortgage with any of the financial institutions that we have pre-negotiated the low rate. This is no stress, no hassle, no headache dealing with contractors. You simply observe your new, resilient, modern home being built, and within a few months, you'll receive your keys to a brand new property. Mr. Speaker, that is what you call a super sweet deal. And I also want to challenge the private sector companies to provide furnishings, sofa sets, and cabinets, because the banks have always also got them to agree to include interior furnishings at the same low deal. And so with the National NBD of Dominica, we've been able to negotiate a lower rate, which is much lower than mortgages across Dominica, a low rate of 4.5%, Mr. Speaker, the lowest you will find ever, with terms of up to 30 years, and commercial loans and interest rates from 5 to 8% with 15 years. And similarly, the NCCU offer low rates as well, and a low mortgage rate of 5% with repayment terms of a little longer, 35 years. Another super sweet deal, Mr. Speaker. These 2 programs will be launched in the coming weeks. Anybody interested? I say seize this opportunity, jump on it, buy to build. I don't know if you'll ever be able to get another opportunity like this. This is your sole chance to invest in your home at a remarkably low construction cost and mortgage rate. Also, it has the potential to become future investment as a rental property or an Airbnb, Mr. Speaker. I'm also pleased to announce more milestones in the Ministry of Housing, Mr. Speaker, that we just recently broke ground on the construction of the future housing in Warner. Mr. Speaker, this project will redefine luxury living in Dominica. Because these homes are not just structures, they represent a revolutionary approach to home ownership. We're ensuring that our hard-working young professionals can simply drive up to their homes, unlock their door, and step into their modern space that they can call their home, a dream fulfilled without the stress of construction. As we embark on development in Cotton Hill, imagine owning the privilege of owning a high-end property within a leisurely stroll of the marina coming and the prestigious Intercontinental Cabritz, truly a lifestyle second to none. Diasporans, if you're hearing me, I'm speaking to you. Many of you contacted me, you want to come home. Here is your opportunity to invest. They have the money. This subdivision will not only provide exquisite living spaces, but also catalyze economic growth, aligning perfectly with our marina to come and the bustling businesses that is soon going to grace the area. To support all these new initiatives, Mr. Speaker, we are seeking to engage more of our small contractors, our tradesmen, and our artisans to ensure that they have the support needed to contribute to our resilient goals. And so we recently introduced in the Ministry of Housing website. If you log on there, you will see our newly established database of contractors who have collaborated with the ministry and the wider government. This database allows users to search for contractors across Dominica and skilled tradesmen across Dominica by geographic area and their area of expertise. Additionally, it offers for new opportunities for registrations. Because the fact is, Mr. Speaker, sometimes diasporans want to do things here, but it's almost like you have to know somebody who knows a plumber, or you have to have direct contact with an electrician. But if you come to this directory, it's a valuable resource. We have listings of architects, engineers, builders, electricians, plumbers, tilers, carpenters, joiners, painters, landscapers. We included interior designers as well, blind installers, window cleaners, handymen, and upholsterers across Dominica. Easy access. Mr. Speaker, a platform for contractors to showcase their services and reach even a broader audience. We have done the groundwork by providing the links to access these tradesmen and professionals in every community in Dominica. Mr. Speaker, as the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, I lend my support to address a crucial issue that affects many Dominicans: the need to update our Tenancies and Rent Control Act. Because in the little time that I've been in this ministry, I've seen too many cases where tenants end up paying excessive amounts for poor quality housing simply because they don't know their rights. Or maybe they feel powerless to challenge exploitative practices. Mr. Speaker, there are people paying rent in Dominica in places with no electricity, failed plumbing, no toilet. They're sleeping on their bed, it's raining, water is dripping on their head. Missing windows, their front door cannot lock, cannot close properly. The kitchen have termites, and they're paying rent for these conditions. Mr. Speaker, something has to be done. Because if you are paying a landlord for a place to stay, it's a basic safe housing accommodation must be provided. But, we have some good landlords, of course. I would like to commend the many good landlords across Dominica who keep their place clean and ensure that the basic provisions are made for proper human living. But this update to our laws is essential to ensuring that our rental market is fair and transparent, where everyone will get a better deal. And so we are concerned about some of the shortcomings of this legislation, because there's a maximum rent of $800 that the law applies to. So if you're renting a place for $810, that means the law doesn't apply to you. It's not fair, Mr. Speaker. So we are asking that we cover all rental properties to ensure better living for our people. Within the last year, the Rent Office brought 80 cases to the Magistrate Court for issues of rent recovery, rent possession, and rent increases. These numbers highlight the pressing need for stronger protection and clearer regulations. Our commitment is to modernize our housing laws to better reflect the needs and the realities of today's society. Our goal is to guarantee everyone access to fair and affordable housing. So the re-establishment of the Tenancy and Rent Commission will play a pivotal role in this process. And so I encourage everyone who has rental issues to come to the Rent Control Desk at the Housing Division. Your feedback is crucial in helping us to make the right changes towards a rental market where fairness is guaranteed. Mr. Speaker, as we reflect on the last financial year, I am proud to highlight that our ministry plays a critical role in driving forward the dynamic Dominica. As a custodian of state lands, we have been instrumental in facilitating critical and successful acquisitions for our major projects across Dominica, like our international airport, our cable car, and our geothermal. And our international airport in particular holds profound implications for our ministry's urban development portfolio, promising enhanced quality of life, improved living conditions, and increased economic opportunities that will no doubt lead to population spillover effects. Over 500 acres have been acquired for the International Airport Development Project in Wesley. And I heard the opposition member for the Marigot constituency question our interest and desire to compensate affected property owners. But I want to clear the air. In fact, I want to educate him where this is concerned. Our biggest hurdle is the compensation process and the proof of ownership, which is required by the law. The certification of titles being the most recognized form of ownership documentation. So this process can be lengthy and complex, and the state cannot make payments to individuals who may have an interest in the property without the proper legal documentation. As doing so, we will expose the state to liability if another party were to come forward with a valid claim. Notwithstanding this, I am pleased to report, and he knows this already, that our investments in land and agricultural compensation, in total, we have paid private landowners for their acquired properties and crops well over $11 million, Mr. Speaker. And so I encourage our diasporans again and our potential investors to seize the business opportunities that are arising from the anticipated, you heard the Minister of Finance state that we expect 500,000 annual airport arrival. This is marking a new era of growth, Mr. Speaker. I want to encourage people to invest in small franchise eateries, some things that are not in Dominica yet, like Auntie Anne's and Cinnabon and Starbucks, as well as exploring opportunities for duty-free shopping in the area, Airbnb rental, agricultural tourism, mini-marts, and different sorts of entertainment, Mr. Speaker. And if they're looking for land, they can come to the Ministry of Housing because we offer prime land for sale near the International Airport. The opportunities are before you. And in no way, member of Marigot, am I stating that this is an opportunity for you to invest in stimulating enterprises, but there are many other wholesome opportunities to explore. In the next year, we'll revise the land use plan for the Northeast area and take advantage of the benefits of the new international airport. So I say to the people of Marigot, Wesley, and Woodford Hill, and Kalibishi, we promise you a brighter future. I hold close to me, Mr. Speaker, the Labour Party manifesto of 2019. I always like to make my little to-do list, and I want to track the promises that I made to the people of Dominica, marking my check boxes as I fulfill programs, even adding more to the list. And I'm proud to say that every ministry and every government program has made an impact on the Roseau Central constituency. So I want to thank my colleagues, Mr. Speaker, here today. With the commencement of the Roseau Enhancement Project this year, we are nearing the fulfillment on all our promises. In fact, I have found myself expanding as our progress continues. As you may know, recently, through my collaboration with the Dominica Olympic Committee and Pan Am Sports, we started the rehabilitation of the former Dominica Club, expanding sports and recreational activities. We are refurbishing the tennis courts. We will bring back squash and badminton to this area. We will also introduce a new sport called pickleball, and there will also be a rollerblading ring. This also allows for extra spin-off extreme sports like skateboarding and even bicycle stunts. I think this new and exciting development will become a new hotspot giving promenade competition, Mr. Speaker. We're catering to both locals and cruise ship passengers. And I would like to appeal to the agro-processors to make products readily available, as there will be a strictly local section to specifically target our tourists. It will encompass an area. This area will be a fusion of our sports, our culture, and entertainment. Mr. Speaker, our teenagers in Dominica are looking for good, wholesome fun. And so this will be a place where families and teenagers can gather to rollerblade, and even tourists rollerblade to our booyah music. They can watch an exciting game of tennis and sipping on freshly squeezed cane juice, which we're going to bring back to the city. This development will boost our local tourism and stimulate economic activities, contributing to a vibrant and thriving Roseau. While our big ticket project in the city, the Roseau Enhancement Project, is nearing the start line of the next phase, we remain resolute that once this revolutionary aspect begins, transformation will unfold. And I have been working alongside the Financial Secretary and a subcommittee of expert individuals in preparation for the launch of this program. And it may be one, in fact it is,
15 more minutes.
10.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Minister of Housing be given an additional 10 minutes to complete her presentation.
It has been moved and seconded that the Honorable Skerrit be given an additional 10 minutes. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Honorable Skerrit, you are given an additional 10 minutes.
So as I was saying, the Roseau Enhancement Project, it may be more than the most complicated projects. Revamping an old city is something which has never been done in the other Caribbean islands. But nevertheless, we are on track to appoint a community liaison officer and assemble a team of highly skilled professionals. And we will be gearing up to engage all the stakeholders, including our residents, our business owners, and the vendors. Meanwhile, Mr. Speaker, we forge ahead, tapping into international organizations like UN Women. Earlier this year, we successfully tapped into one of their SDGs, 11 Sustainable Cities and Communities, by pitching the idea of a Go Green bus store which would transport shoppers to women-owned business. This also aligns with our march towards climate resiliency as we make an appeal to establish the first Go Green bus, the first ever sustainable public transportation for climate change. And so we were able to successfully launch the Shipreneur Hop On Hop Off tour in Roseau and Portsmouth, which provided a platform for over 20 women-owned businesses to generate revenue for their local products and different experiences. And since doing this, Mr. Speaker, positive reviews and word-of-mouth referrals have established this as a reputable brand. As a matter of fact, as a result of this initiative, 3 of the women entrepreneurs, Très Chic Eclat Nova Luxuries, and a female Kalinago artisan were selected by UN Women to participate in the International Seeds Conference in Antigua. Mr. Speaker, this opened new markets for these small businesses to sell their products for the first time on a regional level. At the constituency level, we conducted a productive hydroponic farming training session. We received technical assistance from the Chinese Agricultural Technical Mission by providing training to about 50 individuals. We are promoting backyard gardening and modern farming methods in urban spaces, because I believe it is one of the best ways to reduce the grocery bill, to grow and consume your own produce. And while the escalating food prices pose a worldwide issue, living on a tropical island with fertile soil gives us significant advantage. And for this reason, this is why I've been advocating for urban farming among my constituents. Utilizing modern techniques, they can cultivate now potatoes on their balcony, herbs on the walls of the alleyways. They can grow peas and teas on their newly constructed concrete roofs. Therefore, all new homes that we are building will include space for gardening. And so this is how we're urging individuals to plant in their backyards and consume what they grow and share any surplus with their neighbors. Small but impactful infrastructure projects have improved the quality of life for my constituents. This includes the rehabilitation of the Virgin Lane sidewalk. We had a River Street Kudme sidewalk project and an ongoing cobblestone sidewalk project on Cross Street headed by the Roseau City Council, promoting safety and enhancing the beauty and cultural heritage of our city. Earlier this year, I was joined by some powerful women like Dr. Tekla Lewis. And together with a few other powerful women, Natalie Joseph, Dr. Robinson, Dr. Addis King, Dr. Paquette Ansem, together we tackle critical issues in the area of physical health, mental health, financial management, relationships, and everyday women's issues by hosting 5 successful women's symposiums. Mr. Speaker, this impacted over 800 women from every nook and cranny in Dominica. It wasn't just in Roseau. Every constituency was part of this. The feedback was centered around healing, self-reflection, making sound financial decisions, and driving positive change in our lives. And I must say that there continues to be a demand for this to become an annual project on our agenda. You know, the women, they are even asking for men's symposiums. My member for Maho, I've been nudging him on this, to lead on this. They're asking for symposium for married couples. They're asking for symposium for teenagers, Mr. Speaker. A seed has been sown, and now the roots are starting to grow. And as a result of this, actually, several small women support groups have emerged locally as empowered women are offering support to others in their villages. We've also garnered regional interest. Leading organizations and individuals have been reaching out to us. Moving ahead, Mr. Speaker, in Roseau Central, our Christmas village was a resounding success last year with over 50 small businesses. And the town of Portsmouth this time also adopted the concept and implemented it for the first time. This year, I am calling on the local businesses to join forces with me and let us light up the botanical gardens. Every business pick a tree, decorate it and light it up. So when you drive through the gardens, you're driving through a wonderland of lights. But Mr. Speaker, I attest to the numerous social programs that my constituents derive benefits from. There's so many programs, Mr. Speaker. Of course, we have the Yes You Care, the National Employment Program, our uniform and textbook program, our education support, our scholarships. I am also currently preparing for my annual Adopt a Child Back to School program, where hundreds of children receive school bags and school supplies. Additionally, this year, I continued with my programs for single mothers, the elderly, hurricane preparedness, and a soup kitchen, Mr. Speaker, something I saw you doing in the constituency of Roseau North, so yes, I copied you. I would like to extend my gratitude to the Chinese government for their generous donation of $243,000 to assist in hurricane preparedness, Mr. Speaker. This year, I have more programs. Mr. Speaker, my elderly personal assistants, I have people who are checking my elderly in Roseau, running their errands for them, paying their bills, doing their groceries for them. We have social activities that have become annual now, our Easter egg hunt, Mother's Day, Father's Day, our social events. My LYO is now planning a retreat. I have my summer camp. I have National Assessment Champions class. I have Free Women Symposium I just spoke about. I have Pudme in the city. And Mr. Speaker, that is why, you see all those things I do in there? That is why the opposition forces want to target me so heavy. Because they hate what I do in. They hate that I do so much. Imagine 2 members, not the one sitting there, but 2 members of the opposition forces, but they're from the same cabal. You understand? They wanted to strike a deal with me. They tell me, stop what you're doing in Roseau, and if you stop what you're doing in Roseau, we'll stop making up stories on you. They will stop the lies and the fake stories and the dirty politics and the propaganda. They want me to stop. They want me to do nothing, Mr. Speaker. I tell them, go ahead, run your mouth and run your show. Because there's nothing they can do to break me, Mr. Speaker. And I tell them, while they're at it, make sure they take their pressure pills because I have plenty more goodies to come. And not going to live in fear, Mr. Speaker. And nothing is going to stop me from helping the people of Dominica. Look at Vado, well positioned there. The only constituent sitting upstairs here to support a Cal rep. In Roseau, when she's walking, we call her in Roseau a walking billboard because she dressed from red from head to toe, Mr. Speaker. She stood with me in my every day. She campaigning for me in Roseau, and you want me to disappoint my stalwarts like that? The people who stood with me in rain and sun and shine, the people who toiled with me in the campaign, they want me to break my promises? That shall never be, Mr. Speaker. So let them talk, because I will make sure that the promises that I make is my promises that have been kept. But you know what? I leave them in the hands of God, because the Bible says that false witness will not go unpunished, and he who speaks lies shall perish. And including all of those who are funding them behind the scenes, Mr. Speaker, because I shall not be moved, and I shall never stop getting under the skin. One should note, Mr. Speaker, that because most national activities are hosted in Roseau, most of our children don't visit other areas. I launched my Roseau Central summer camp. We embraced I Am Dominica. And so, Mr. Speaker, we wanted them to learn their culture a little bit more, because they don't get to leave the city mostly. They don't go to the Kalinago territory and the north and the different areas. And this is for this reason we organize activities such as Kalinago Day, and we have the Chinese Day at the embassy. They learn different languages and arts, and crafts, cuisine, traditions from every culture. We had field trips. We have a digital component where they're making their little TikToks actually to advertise that I Am Dominica. And as a result of this success, the cultural exchange will evolve into an annual event, because the Chinese ambassador already gave his commitment, and Her Excellency the President, who also hosted us at the State House for Kalinago Day. Mr. Speaker, I hope that this continues, that we can continue, and that every child or different children from across Dominica can immerse themselves in the complete cultures, not just our Kalinago culture, but other resident cultures in Dominica, like the Chinese, the Cubans, Haitians, Venezuelans, during the summertime. I want to give a special shout out, Mr. Speaker, to Ms. Sonia Felix and her team, whose dedication to maintaining the cleanliness of our city. She goes above and beyond. She's working on her days off. And if you have an event in Roseau taking place, she'll make sure the following morning, when you step foot in that city, you walk in a pristine city the following morning. But recognizing the challenges that we face with garbage collection, I have been collaborating with a private benefactor to procure 2 new garbage trucks for garbage collection in the city. But I'm also appealing to business owners to comply with the rules and guidance of relevant authorities and keeping order within the city. The police also have been steadfast in removing derelict vehicles from the city streets. I would also like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Ministry of Tourism for resounding success with Bike Festival. And I have to commend them, because my constituents benefited greatly from this event. I want to commend my constituents Denzel Augustine and Timmy Garaway for this brilliant idea, for seeing it through, and for helping us, more importantly, as the underlying message was to encourage bike safety among our local riders. As a matter of fact, because of this success, they're actually forging ahead with their bike store by offering full protective gear for both men and women to push bike safety in Dominica. So, Mr. Speaker, when hundreds of bikers and two-wheel enthusiasts gathered on the promenade, and all my bar owners went home smiling that night, and the following day at the Kenfield Airport for an exciting afternoon of impressive ride-outs and stunts, anyone can see the bigger picture. We recently heard the President express her concern about our young men and our gangs, and that they need to get involved in more positive engagements. And this is exactly what Bike Festival did. Mr. Speaker, on that weekend, all blocks in Roseau and across Dominica were deserted. I am grateful to God that as we help these young men to respect the power of these bikes and enforce the importance of wearing helmets and complete safety gear, there were no incidents. And this is the essence of our efforts. Let's support our young men in honing their skills and their hobbies by participating in sports and engaging in constructive activities. Because why should society neglect or look down on a man on the block who may be searching for his rightful place in society? The most effective way to bring out the best in anyone is to show them love. And that is why this government, no one is left behind, Mr. Speaker. All shall eat. On that note, I join forces with my colleague from the Soufriere constituency in recommending to the Prime Minister, who is not here today, but I'm sure he's listening, that Bike Festival be placed as a permanent fixture on our annual calendar. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, let us remember the importance of progress, resilience, and compassion. Our vision is clear. We are building a stronger and more resilient and inclusive economy for all. Let's unite in our dedication to provide secure housing and driving innovation for a better future. Our dynamic Dominica is unfolding, and we invite every Dominican to participate in our bright and prosperous future. Before I close off, Mr. Speaker, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to my dedicated staff at the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, one of the best permanent secretaries, Dr. Kira Paul. I want to thank you, as well as my department heads, the men behind the pillars of the Ministry of Housing, Mr. Marcus Lestrade, Imran Coffey, Bernard Lloyd, Naomi Dorival, Glenroy Mason, Mr. Samuel Augustine. These individuals are the pillars of my ministry, and I express my deep appreciation for their efforts in ensuring a smooth operation of our mission in our ministry. I also want to express gratitude to my staff at the constituency office, my zone leaders, my constituency association, my women's organization, my LYO for their consistent support and assistance in carrying out our programs. And a special thank you to the wonderful constituents of Roseau Central for your prayers and your unwavering support. I value your backing and assure you of my steadfast dedication to you, your children, and your grandchildren. So big up to Roseau Central. And you know they have asked me to say to the Electoral Commission to bring it on because they are ready for electoral reform, Mr. Speaker. Long live Labour in Roseau Central. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Oscar George, you have the floor.
Thank
Please
you.
proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. President, good evening to you, and President, good evening to all my esteemed colleagues, and of course, those viewing and listening online. And of course, President, good evening to the most wonderful people you can find anywhere in the world, the people of Penville, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I first want to commend our Minister of Finance on his wonderful presentation. And of course, I want to lend my full support to the budget as presented in this honorable House. I also want to thank all those within the government system who assisted in finalizing the budget document. I think that their work should never go unnoticed, Mr. Speaker. They play a very important role in our efforts here today. Importantly, Mr. Speaker, this budget represents contributions from various walks of life and various sectors within the society. Our farmers, the small business owners, private sector representatives, and so on. As we know, a number of consultations were held leading up to the budget, and of course, this means that this budget is an all-inclusive budget, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the truth is, in the history of this country, there has never been so many projects and programs happening at the same time. And we can go way back, Mr. Speaker. Never has there been so many projects and programs happening in this country. And the wonderful thing about these projects and programs is that they all seek to improve the circumstances of our residents and create new opportunities for the future generation. But at the same time, they don't impact on the current livelihoods of the current generation, Mr. Speaker. And this is just wonderful, and I have never seen so many projects and programs in my lifetime. And a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, even the opposition fragments, Mr. Speaker, they are also saying that they have never seen so many things happening in this country, Mr. Speaker. And we heard the member from Marigot saying that in his own words, Mr. Speaker. Never in history has there been so many things happening. And the thing is, Mr. Speaker, with the opposition fragments, they accept that a lot is happening, but they won't say it publicly, Mr. Speaker. They will say all sorts of things. For example, they would say that election is coming. What they really want to say is so many things are happening that election might be coming. That's what they want to say, Mr. Speaker, but they don't want to say it. They don't want to give the impression to admit that the Labour Party is working, Mr. Speaker. And I just want to tell them, the truth will set them free eventually, so they can join us and support and show appreciation for the hard work being done by this Labour government, Mr. Speaker. And one of the things that amazed me in this year's budget, Mr. Speaker, is that it showed that the government is really in tune with the circumstances of the people on the ground, Mr. Speaker. And you heard the Minister of Finance deliver his speech, Mr. Speaker. All the issues that are affecting the average man in Dominica was addressed in some way or the other, Mr. Speaker. And of course, we recognize that there are challenges. There are many challenges, Mr. Speaker, in the environment, and we continue to advocate and advise our residents on how best to navigate through these challenges. We see, for instance, the significant rise in the price of commodities, imported inflation, Mr. Speaker. And the truth is we had nothing to do with this. Nothing at all, Mr. Speaker. And this is really impacting the overall cost of living in our country. And although the IMF indicated that our inflation in Dominica was lower than the global average, and they expect that our inflation level will continue to fall for the rest of the year, what is important for us in Dominica is how do we get this to reflect on the prices of the commodities on the shelves in our supermarkets, Mr. Speaker. And I know that our government have taken steps to remove the import duty and even the VAT in certain instances on many commodities, many basic items to make it easier for consumers to purchase. But again, how can we get this reflected in the prices on the shelves, Mr. Speaker? And this is a real issue that continues to impact many families. And from the onset, I must say that I am delighted for the announcement in the budget, Mr. Speaker, which said that we will form a committee which will be made up of private and public sector individuals who will examine issues such as these, Mr. Speaker, and of course make suggestions to government to formulate policy. And I think this is a step in the right direction. We acknowledge that rising prices is a real issue. We understand what people are going through, and we are saying through this budget we are taking measures and steps to address it, Mr. Speaker. So I think that is a wonderful piece of issue coming from this budget. Mr. Speaker, the budget was also formulated against the backdrop of constant threats of natural disasters coming from the acceleration of climate change. Again, this is no fault of us, especially given that we produce so little of greenhouse gases that gets into the atmosphere. Yet, we are the ones who have to suffer the brunt of the trauma associated with the impacts of climate change, Mr. Speaker. And the reality is sometimes we make significant investments in our infrastructure in Dominica, and they go to waste. You know, a couple years down the road, they get washed away. And we have to find resources. Sometimes we have to even borrow just to replace what we have already done, Mr. Speaker. And that just goes to show how difficult it is to run a small developing country, Mr. Speaker. And again, we acknowledge the challenges, Mr. Speaker, but we have to keep on fighting. We have to continue to persevere, even in these challenging times. And the main thing to always remember is, even in these difficult times, government will always maintain its programs and policies to create a better life for our citizens, Mr. Speaker. And it's against this backdrop, Mr. Speaker, that I feel honored and privileged to be afforded another opportunity to make a contribution towards this budget in this honorable House. And it will be remiss of me not to begin my contribution on what was termed the largest infrastructural project in CARICOM by the member for Marigot. And we can see that from the budget, $400 million is allocated for our international airport, Mr. Speaker. And that is the most significant allocation in this budget document here today. And an important point, Mr. Speaker, that many people tend to forget is that we build in this airport, and there will be no burden on the future generation to repay. Just imagine building an airport with $1.4 billion, not having to borrow, not having to face a development bank, Mr. Speaker, and matter of fact, no bank will give you that amount of money. And we are tapping into a non-tax revenue arrangement to build this airport, Mr. Speaker. And I can't think of any country around the world that has done that route, Mr. Speaker. And we in Dominica, we are blessed with leadership and visionary leadership to ensure that this approach is the best approach for us in Dominica. So our international airport will serve as the gateway to access Europe and North America. This is something that many governments in the past has attempted to achieve. It wasn't possible, and I'm convinced that all the challenges we face can be eliminated with the construction of our international airport. So I believe it's important to understand the true benefit of our international airport, Mr. Speaker. We are talking about increased visibility from the creation of direct access to our shores. Most of us, if not all of us, had the very unpleasant experience of having to travel to and from Dominica and having to go almost island hopping to get to your final destination, Mr. Speaker. You know, you have to embark, disembark, embark, disembark. And sometimes, when you finally get to your destination, Mr. Speaker, you're finding out that your luggage never embarked. Mr. Speaker, just think about that. A first-time visitor coming to Dominica and having to go through this ordeal, Mr. Speaker. And I believe our international airport, Mr. Speaker, can solve that problem for us. Mr. Speaker, movement of agricultural produce. You know, our international airport will open up international markets for agricultural produce. You know, just imagine, you know, harvesting your produce from your farm, harvesting produce from a place we call Savan in Penville, and transporting that to Wesley, you know, 30, 40 minutes away, boarding a flight into the U.S. mainland in one day, Mr. Speaker. And I think this is the opportunities we have to think about for international airport, Mr. Speaker. Even closer. Remember, for Marigot, even closer. Yeah. And Mr. Speaker, the employment creation. This is another very important aspect of our international airport. And not just in the construction phase. I was advised that about 150 folks are already employed at the site. But beyond the construction phase, in the operationalization of the airport, Mr. Speaker, we're going to need so many workers um, to perform tasks on a daily basis at the international airport, Mr. Speaker. So I believe the international airport and the related infrastructure will bring a complete spike in our economic fortunes for generations to come. And to date, as we heard in the budget address, the required earthworks for the airstrip and the landside buildings have been completed, which means that by the end of the financial year, we can expect about 80% of the earthworks to commence construction. So, Mr. Speaker, I am very happy for this. As I said, this is the most significant project in this budget here today, and we all should rally around our international airport going forward, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, over the last fiscal year, Dominica has been making strides as it relates to attaining sporting excellence at the local, regional, and international levels. Government has continued to invest to modernize, and importantly, modernize the sector while our athletes continue to make a name for themselves. And the reality is, Mr. Speaker, 2 decades ago, we could hardly find a place in Dominica to play marble, Mr. Speaker. That's the reality. And in 2024, when you look around and see the number of facilities all across the island, Mr. Speaker, and we're not just focusing on large facilities in the city or the Windsor Park or Portsmouth, Geneva. We're also focusing on small community-based facilities, Mr. Speaker. We can't ignore the grassroots man. You know, the man that have to go work and come home. He wants to play, but the facilities in the communities doesn't allow him, Mr. Speaker. And that's what we have been able to do as a government, Mr. Speaker. And I liked the way our Minister of Finance started the budget discussion on sports. He said that it's almost impractical to talk about sports and not recognize the extraordinary effort by Kavem Hodge, a young man, Mr. Speaker, from Antrizzo, I think, Antrizzo, Mr. Speaker, a young man, humble man, Mr. Speaker, growing up playing cricket. I remember the days when Kavem was about that height. You know, the bat was just a bit taller than his bat, Mr. Speaker, and this guy was something else at such a young age, Mr. Speaker. And I agreed with what the minister said, that why did it take so long to get Kavem Hodge on the West Indies team? And I also want to put the selectors and CWI on notice. I hope that we don't make the same error with Stefan Pascal, Mr. Speaker. You can't make the mistake 3 times, Mr. Speaker. You know, because scoring a century against, England, in England, Mr. Speaker. Maybe for those who don't know much about cricket, this is not easy. This is not easy, Mr. Speaker. A young man coming from Dominica, Mr. Speaker. And he also scored a half century on Sunday, I believe, Mr. Speaker. So I'm really happy for Kavem Hodge, Mr. Speaker. And of course, I am equally happy for Alec Afanas, Mr. Speaker. They are very good friends. They train together, they laugh together, they learn together. And, Alec fell short of this century, Mr. Speaker, but we expect a lot more from Alec, tremendous talent. So we expect a lot more coming from Alec Afanas. And I just want to say something that a very good friend of mine mentioned recently, Emmanuel Nanton. He said that a number 4 batsman and a number 5 batsman on any team represents the engine of the team, Mr. Speaker. So what that means is Dominica, is the engine of West Indies cricket, Mr. Speaker. You know, and I just want to say, I just want to commend publicly the contribution of Emmanuel Lanton, Mr. Speaker. Many times it goes unnoticed. Emmanuel Lanton has committed his life towards cricket, Mr. Speaker. I think it deserves an award. It's his life for cricket, Mr. Speaker. Worked with so many young guys in the countryside and grooming these young guys. Find opportunities for young players, you know, many young players got an opportunity to study through cricket scholarships because of the contribution of Nanton, Mr. Speaker. And I just want to put that on record in this honorable house. His contribution, very significant, and I commend him for that, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, just to say that, you know, our players are excelling with the current facilities we have. With the current facilities we have, Mr. Speaker. And I want to piggyback on what Senator Lockhart mentioned earlier in his presentation, that yes, the facilities are important. And yes, government is committed to developing the facilities, as we are doing. But it takes more than facilities to get there and to stay there, Mr. Speaker. It takes commitment, dedication, hard work, work ethic, Mr. Speaker, to perform at the highest level, Mr. Speaker. And I'm just happy that our athletes are showing that they have what it takes to perform at the highest level, Mr. Speaker. And of course, we remain committed to this. We're so committed to this that recently the government of Dominica appointed the formation of the National Sports Council. This was something that have been eluding us for some time, and I'm very happy that finally we were able to come through with the National Sports Council, Mr. Speaker, and we have appointed the very knowledgeable and experienced Mr. Billy Doctorow to spearhead that council, Mr. Speaker. You know, I want to congratulate Billy Doctorow. I have a lot of respect and admiration for Mr. Doctorow. You know, he have served different sporting associations. You know, he was an international cricket umpire for many years. Even now, he's no longer a cricket umpire. He has his own business, but he continues to invest a lot of funds from his business into sports, Mr. Speaker. And this is just wonderful, and I want to commend Billy Doctorow for this. Mr. Speaker, just to be clear, the goal of the Sports Council is really to enhance the overall management of sports in Dominica. I know the member for Marigot asked. He asked. And although I suspect he knows, but he asked, Mr. Speaker, enhance the overall management of sports in Dominica. And of course, a large part of that will be looking at the current legislation that governs sports, Mr. Speaker. This is outdated. 1976 or thereabout. You know, we cannot function and seek to develop a sector, and we are operating in an archaic legal system, Mr. Speaker. So one of the mandates of the Sports Council is to look at that piece of legislation and see how we can modernize it, you know, make it more relevant to the times, Mr. Speaker. And I want to commend the Ministry of Legal Affairs. They have also looked at the piece of legislation for us, the AG's office, and of course the Minister of National Security. They have looked at it. They have recommendations on what they believe is the best piece of legislation to govern sports. We have also engaged the services of Mr. Laron, who will lead in terms of liaising with the council, getting suggestions and recommendations from them, and of course collating this, and then we can have a formal submission to the cabinet for discussion, and of course to further it in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. But just to say that we have done very well in terms of the facilities and infrastructure aspects of sports. I think that now is the time for us to put some emphasis on the legal framework and the structure and deal with more intangibles, Mr. Speaker. So part of the mandate of the Sports Council will also be to finalize the national sports policy, Mr. Speaker. And, you know, we have given them a timeline. Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that they are all keen on working hard. I think they had their first meeting sometime about 2 weeks ago. They met um, initially, some really good discussions. We have a lot of experience on the council, many persons who have served in different capacities, all of whom can contribute meaningfully, Mr. Speaker, to the process. And just to give the Parliament an example of what we're looking at in terms of the sports policy, we, we have some areas where we believe it's important to modernize. For instance, the issue of time off for athletes, Mr. Speaker, this is a significant area. A lot of discussion have been had on that area. Persons get selected for national team, they cannot get time off from the employer. We as a government, we give everybody that works for government time off, but it goes beyond us. We have the private sector. How can you convince an Asta fans to give somebody time off to represent Dominica? They're not going to pay them, or they might be reluctant to pay them. What happens, Mr. Speaker? So this is an area where we will seek to, well, the council will seek to address in the policy the established procedure for being considered a national team and representing Dominica, Mr. Speaker. Many times people travel and they go out and they call themselves national team because they play football. They maybe just be a club from a community and they call themselves national team. Sometimes they have no association, Mr. Speaker, no governing body to take charge of these people. So what is the established procedures to call yourself a national team in terms of conduct and your attire? What are you going to wear? And stuff like that. The system for awarding athletes who have excelled internationally. We are committed to rewarding all our athletes who excel. But can we have a structured system to do it, Mr. Speaker? The council will have to give advice on this. Sports broadcasting. This is an area that's growing in popularity. What type of laws that will govern sports broadcasting? We have integrity in sports. The obligations of the different associations. What can they do? What shouldn't they do? The association, we can't allow the associations to just do as they please, Mr. Speaker. Because, yes, they're not affiliated to the government, but they have an important role to develop sports, Mr. Speaker. Because when our athletes leave the structured programs at the primary and secondary schools, they go out on their own, and the associations have to ensure that they can carry the burden, Mr. Speaker. So we have to know exactly what are the rules and functions of the associations. We have first and second generation athletes. How do we treat that, Mr. Speaker? The policy should be clear on these areas. The role of the private sector, the school leagues, and how we can improve it, Mr. Speaker. And of course, sports tourism, Mr. Speaker. We want to know what are the recommendations, how we can benefit more from our sports tourism and attract more visitors to Dominica, Mr. Speaker. So all of these things, Mr. Speaker, and many, many more, should, in my humble opinion, be clearly articulated in the comprehensive sports policy, which the council is formed, they're excited, they're energetic, and they're going to work, Mr. Speaker. The experts are at work, Mr. Speaker, and I hope that very soon we can come back to this house with an updated act for sports, and then following that, a comprehensive national sports policy that will govern sports, Mr. Speaker. So I'm happy for us getting to the stage, and of course I want to thank all the members, including the chairman, for accepting our invitation to serve on this council, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to take some time to congratulate our Olympic team. As you know, they're in Paris as we speak. I actually had a discussion with Mr. Billy Doctorow this morning. They have settled in very well. They're in good spirits. They're doing the light training and preparing for competition, Mr. Speaker. Actually, the first competition by Dominican will be on Thursday, swimming, Mr. Speaker. and I encourage everyone to support our athletes, Mr. Speaker. Olympics is a big thing. And from all reports, Mr. Speaker, and especially what we have seen from FIA in particular over the last few years, there's a very high probability she will get a medal, Mr. Speaker. So I ask that we show our support, virtually to our athletes, Mr. Speaker. They'll be commencing their participation on Thursday, Mr. Speaker. So I wish them well, and of course I pray that they are the best and can perform to the best of their ability. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, the government continues to invest in grassroots development, Mr. Speaker. And we believe that if we can expose our athletes to the right opportunities and coaching at a very early age, Mr. Speaker, this will help them to develop their skills and their craft, Mr. Speaker. And importantly, it is at this point we can identify the top athletes and put them in a structured program for the sports division and work with a respective association to further groom these athletes, Mr. Speaker. A matter of fact, in this budget, we have an allocation of over $2 million just to continue our developmental programs under the Ministry of Sports, Mr. Speaker. And I speak of programs such as the sports clinic, which are held at district levels and target students between the ages of 9 to 15 years. And students are normally engaged in football, netball, basketball, and cricket. The coaching caravan, the primary schools football coaching program, and the schools championships festivals held at the secondary schools in a number of disciplines, Mr. Speaker. In football, we have the athletics meet, which we normally have on an annual basis, Mr. Speaker. Netball, the under 14, under 16, and under 20. We have the girls football festival, volleyball for boys and girls, and table tennis and cricket under 15 and under 19, and basketball for both boys and girls, Mr. Speaker. At the primary school level, we have a number of championships and festivals. We have the cross-country race at the district level and the finals. This was a new initiative started last year. The table tennis, district festivals, and open singles championships. We have the primary school football, which has been sponsored by the National Bank of Dominica. This is growing from strength to strength, Mr. Speaker. After last year, the Baroness Patricia Scotland Primary and Tebow Primary combined, they won that competition, Mr. Speaker, and that was a very happy moment for us in the North, because many times we tend to associate football with the South. They have been doing very well in the South and the East in terms of football, but this last year, Mr. Speaker, last year, a very small primary school in the North of Dominica, the Baroness Patricia Scotland and Tebow combined, won, Mr. Speaker, 50 plus primary schools across Dominica, Mr. Speaker, and we were able to become champions, Mr. Speaker, in Vickers, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the member of Marigot, from Marigot, said we don't have sports programs at the primary school. I don't blame him, Mr. Speaker. I don't blame him. Sometimes he says anything. I don't really blame him, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, imagine a school right in his constituency, Mr. Speaker, a primary school right in his constituency won many of the primary schools programs, Mr. Speaker, champions in his constituency. And he's here saying that nothing is being done at the primary school level, Mr. Speaker, not knowing that his school won. That just shows, Mr. Speaker, he's not in tune. He's not in tune, Mr. Speaker. He's not in tune with what is going on. You have to get in tune. And Mr. Speaker, I just want to place on record, in this honorable house, my commendations to the sports coordinator, Mr. Speaker, Trevor Shillingford, Mr. Speaker. And of course, his sports officers, youth sports officers, Mr. Speaker, they continue to deliver on all these developmental programs, Mr. Speaker. And, sometimes these programs can be very difficult to run, Mr. Speaker. All the logistics, getting primary schools from all across Dominica um, to the Lindo Park, for instance, for competition. It's not easy. It can be a nightmare, Mr. Speaker. But Trevor Shillingford and the sports division have been able to do that for a number of years, Mr. Speaker. And I really want to commend them for the effort, Mr. Speaker. Apart from the developmental programs and investments we are making in grassroots sports, we have also created opportunities outside of Dominica. That's also very important. Dominica is represented at the Carifta Games, the World Indoor Athletics Championship, the Windward Island School Games. Unfortunately, we could not have it this year because of Hurricane Beryl, but last year, it was a very successful event. We had the Windward Islands under 19 and under 15 cricket, the OECS volleyball, we had the OECS netball, the CONCACAF sanctions football tournament at the senior and youth levels, the regional under 16 netball tournament, NACAC age group competitions, Mr. Speaker, the CARICOM Youth Games, the World Outdoor Athletics Championships, Mr. Speaker. Dominica also hosted, Mr. Speaker. We sent delegations to these events, but we also hosted regional and international tournaments, which also play a role in pushing the agenda for sports tourism. We hosted the OECS Table Tennis Championship last financial year. We hosted the OECS Under 21 Women's Volleyball Championship. Of course, we hosted the test match, West Indies versus India. We also hosted the Windward Islands Under 19 Cricket Tournament, Mr. Speaker, which from all reports was very successful. So we continue to play our part, Mr. Speaker, in creating avenues for young athletes to perform. Because if that is not done, they can fall by the wayside, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in our efforts to improve community sports around Dominica, a project to lit up 8 playing fields commenced in the last fiscal year. And one may ask, why are we investing in lights on community playing fields? That's a question we get sometimes. Why do we invest in lights at community playing fields? Because it comes with a significant cost, Mr. Speaker. In the region of $200,000 is spent just to erect lights on one playing field. And then we're doing 8, 8 in a time when, there's so many other competing priorities. Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, one of the concerns our office articulated to us is that, they want to play in the evening because of commitments, and that's one of the driving forces behind this project, Mr. Speaker, providing lighting to address the issues of the athletes, in the evening time. So the scope of works included the excavation to allow for the placement of the concrete bases, the construction of the concrete bases, the trenching to allow for underground cables, the erection of 45-foot metal poles, which are very resilient, Mr. Speaker, and of course the installation of LED lighting. As of now, the lighting system have been installed on 5 playing fields, at Maho, at Vickers, at Grand Fort, Bellevue Chope, and Ansdime. And in this fiscal period, Mr. Speaker, we're looking to conclude the other 3 playing fields, which is the Sophia playing field, Center playing field at Granby, and Granville playing field at Portsmouth, Mr. Speaker. I really want to commend the Member of Parliaments for their support in this project. We actually visited many of them. The parents were there with us. They had a significant role to play in determining, where exactly to put the poles and what they want to do for the playing field, future plans of the playing fields, further expansion, and all these things. I want to commend every single parent for these 8 playing fields, Mr. Speaker. But my advice to the community on a whole, where we implement these lighting solutions, is they have a role to play, Mr. Speaker, in basic maintenance of these playing fields. If over topping water is a problem in a playing field, and a simple drain can solve that problem, Mr. Speaker. The community, the village council, the sports committee, they have to get on board and help us to help them, Mr. Speaker. Basic maintenance of the playing field, ensure the grass is cut, play your role in ensuring that the facility is well kept and protected, Mr. Speaker. And of course, they have to make proper use of the facility. Organize leagues, the village councils, the community sports groups, organize leagues. Every weekend should be bubbling, Mr. Speaker, in these communities from sporting activities, Mr. Speaker, in the evening time. Yep. You cannot say the sun is hot, Mr. Speaker. Have some entertainment and play sports, and identify why you have fun. Identify the young athletes that are excellent, and let the sports officers know that guy has some talent, so we can groom that guy, put him in a structured program for the sports division, and groom that guy, and ensure that years to come, that guy can represent Dominica and get to the international scale, Mr. Speaker. So that is the vision, Mr. Speaker, that we can boost sports at the local level, Mr. Speaker. And just to say, Mr. Speaker, this weekend coming, Mr. Speaker, we will have the return of one of the most entertaining football leagues in Dominica, Mr. Speaker. This weekend coming, Sunday, Mr. Speaker. One of the most vibrant football leagues will be making a return this weekend, Mr. Speaker. And of course, I'm inviting you to join, Mr. Speaker. A little suspense. This is the St. Joe Football League. So, yeah. So, Mr. Speaker, we are also making significant progress as it relates to investments in hard courts. That's also a very important aspect when it comes to facilities, Mr. Speaker. Works are ongoing at the Lapland Hard Court, Mr. Speaker. I want to commend the parrot for Lapland, Mr. Speaker, in a special way. Because, there was a long-standing issue at Lapland playing field in terms of the lighting. It wasn't adequate. In a matter of months, this was rectified through the involvement of the parrot. And again, the court, Mr. Speaker, speaking to young persons in our plane, they would always bring up the issue of court, we want a court. Because the truth is, we had started some works on the Lapland court a few years ago, but it never completed. But with the energy from the parrot, Mr. Speaker, we had no choice than to push through and ensure that the Lapland court is going ahead, Mr. Speaker. And from speaking to the parrot, Mr. Speaker, when she shared her vision for sports in Lapland, Mr. Speaker, I'm very, very satisfied and comfortable that Lapland will go places in sports, Mr. Speaker. Getting the young persons involved, getting the council involved, the committees involved, and of course working through her team, Mr. Speaker. So I'm very happy that Lapland could benefit from this. Portsmouth is another area where we are building actually two courts, an outdoor court and an indoor court. The outdoor court, we are just waiting on the acrylic painting and the rims to be erected, Mr. Speaker. The indoor facility, we have to change the site from the original site, and that requires some amendments to the foundation, which they are now working on, Mr. Speaker. So very soon we'll be in a position to break ground on the Portsmouth indoor facility. And the community of Penville, we're also constructing a top-class sporting facility there, Mr. Speaker. If you know Penville, Mr. Speaker, you will know that Penville is by no means flat. So we had to search, Mr. Speaker. And through the intervention of the parrot, Mr. Speaker, we were able to find an ideal plot of land where we could build a wonderful basketball facility, a multi-purpose facility, Mr. Speaker. We have washrooms, we have a little area for bar, because you know, yeah, we could have a bar, we could have some drinks. We will have lights, Mr. Speaker, some benches, Mr. Speaker. Um, I think this is what this is something that's going to add a lot of value to sports in Penville, Mr. Speaker. We recently did the acrylic painting, Mr. Speaker, and we just, very soon, we will have our young guys on a brand new state-of-the-art court at Penville, Mr. Speaker. Not just the guys, but also the girls have expressed their interest to play netball and stuff like that, Mr. Speaker. So I am very happy for this. We're all eagerly waiting to commence playing on this facility, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, with regards to the Windsor Park Stadium, we did some works in the last financial year. Actually, one of the recommendations from the Cricket West Indies was to relay the entire pitch surface, meaning creating new pitches, basically. So we had to dig up the entire square, do complete new pitches, give it some months to cure and stuff like that. And from all reports, following the Dream 11 competition, the wicket is playing very well for a new wicket. So I'm happy for this. Of course, we will do some further rehabilitation to the outfield because that's also important. And of course, the lighting system, when it's complete, I believe we will start to create some more economic activity generated from the Windsor Park Stadium, Mr. Speaker. So I'm very happy for this, Mr. Speaker. And just to say that, just to highlight some of the accomplishment by our athletes for the financial year. As we know, Fia Lafont, she won the first gold medal at the indoor championships in the women's triple jump. We had, of course, the excellence from our cricketers, Calvin Hodge and Alec Afanas. Stephen Pascal also, he was captain in the West Indies under-19 team. That is very significant. Dominico won the Windward Islands under-15 cricket tournament. Addison James from Marigot, he won bronze in the under-20 boys category at the Carifta Games. Dominico won the boys and girls basketball at the Windward Island School Games. Dominico placed third in the regional under-16 netball competition. Denick Luke from Portsmouth won the bronze medal at the NACAC under-23 in the 800 meters. Mr. Speaker, I also want to highlight this young athlete, Amir Gilbert from Penville, Mr. Speaker. Amir Gilbert from Penville, Mr. Speaker. Amir is what you refer to as a true all-rounder, Mr. Speaker. Amir is into football, into cricket, into netball. Just name the sport. Amir Gilbert from Penville, Mr. Speaker. I just want us to remember that name, Mr. Speaker. Amir Gilbert. I think she will go far, Mr. Speaker. She's already playing for the West Indies under-19 team. So young, Mr. Speaker. So I congratulate her and her mother, and of course, the entire family, Mr. Speaker. And it's just bizarre when you listen to people say that nothing is happening in sports, Mr. Speaker. I can understand. I mean, you can say that, not enough is being done, as is the case, everywhere. More can always be done, Mr. Speaker, but you cannot say that nothing is being done in sports, Mr. Speaker. No. Now we have indoor facilities. One of the days where we had outdoor facilities, now we have indoor facilities. So the elements of the weather is no longer deterrent to practice and train, Mr. Speaker. And that's where we're going, Mr. Speaker. We're modernizing the sector, Mr. Speaker. It's not perfect. There will always be things that we can do. There will always be improvements that we can do, given the limited resources. But I believe we are on the right track when it comes to sports, Mr. Speaker. Oh boy. Mr. Speaker, similar to sports, capacity building through training opportunities also facilitates holistic development in young people. And central to this is the work of the Youth Development Division, Mr. Speaker.
15 more minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I move to provide some additional time for the Honorable Pastor.
Could you
Ten.
repeat?
I wish to move for an additional 10 minutes to the Honorable Minister.
It has been moved and seconded that the minister be given an additional 10 minutes. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Honorable Minister, you are given an additional 10 minutes.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Youth Division Skills Programs also plays an important role in the empowerment of youth in Dominica. And we have to accept the fact that there are tremendous employment opportunities available in skill-based trades, Mr. Speaker. For instance, auto mechanics, Mr. Speaker, with the volume of vehicles that are now coming into Dominica, Mr. Speaker, we need persons that are able to apply that trade and to make a living out of these things, Mr. Speaker. You know, electricals, plumbing, construction tradesmen, Mr. Speaker. A matter of fact, there is a growing skills gap in all of these sectors, Mr. Speaker. So we want to prepare all our young people to take advantage of these things, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Member, tilt your mic closer to you. Like just tilt it, yes. And yeah, good.
Thank
Good.
you.
All right.
Thank you. In March 2024, the Youth Division partnered with the Muslim community and held a 4-month building trades model at the Dominica State College, where inmates got an opportunity to learn a valuable trade that will remain with them for the rest of their life, Mr. Speaker. And hopefully, when and if they get out, Mr. Speaker, they will be equipped with the necessary skills to make a valuable contribution in that part of their life, Mr. Speaker. In April 2024, the small engines repair models, Mr. Speaker, it was implemented very successfully for a number of young guys, showing tremendous interest in that, Mr. Speaker. And I want to commend all the staff of the division for the commitment in these trying times. And a trace study was done, Mr. Speaker, during the last fiscal year. And the results indicated that the recent graduates of these programs, 58% of them, Mr. Speaker, have found employment, Mr. Speaker. That is tremendous. 58% of the people who go through these programs, they end up in gainful employment, Mr. Speaker. So this is making a tremendous contribution to our growth and development, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the ministry also seeks to promote a culture of entrepreneurship. And, the DYBT plays a very important role in that. I won't dive below the surface when it comes to DYBT. I will leave it to my dear colleague, Philip Roll. But a number of programs was implemented through the DYBT, Mr. Speaker, and all trying to ensure that young people can achieve their true potential through entrepreneurship, Mr. Speaker. Because too many times we believe in Dominica that the only form of employment is working for government, and we don't harness our skills and talents and ideas and enter the world of business, of small business, to earn a living, Mr. Speaker. And I want to commend the coordinator of the Youth Business Trust for his efforts, Mr. Speaker. This is really working in our favor, in the favor of young people, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am very passionate about housing. And I believe that housing is one of the foremost needs of every human being. Every human being aims to own a home at one point in their life. However, there are significant barriers to persons owning a home, Mr. Speaker. We know that the financial institutions may have terms and conditions that may hinder persons' access to these resources, Mr. Speaker. And furthermore, in instances where homes are destroyed, as was the case following Hurricane Maria, that person is then forced to start from scratch. And for young people in particular, they might have even greater difficulty to contract a mortgage, Mr. Speaker. Because young people, they might have pre-existing debt. They might be, they might have a student loan, which makes it very difficult to contract additional debt. They might have a vehicle loan, which also limits the ability to contract a mortgage, Mr. Speaker. They might be paying rent, another reason why it might be difficult to contract loans, Mr. Speaker. And all these considerations underpinned this Labour government policy and stance on housing, Mr. Speaker. The vision of our leader is to ensure that all our residents have decent homes and can feel secure during severe weather. And just to say that all these homes that are being gifted to our residents, some of them cost in the region of $250,000, Mr. Speaker. Some cost in the region of $350,000, Mr. Speaker. And this is just gifted to a person, Mr. Speaker, empowering them, giving them an asset, Mr. Speaker, to feel safe and secure, Mr. Speaker. I'm not sure any country in the world, Mr. Speaker, have a policy like this, Mr. Speaker. I've seen many countries give away homes, and I've seen wooden structures being given away, and it makes a big deal. And here in Dominica, we're giving away resilient homes costing $350,000, Mr. Speaker. And this is just significant. So I paid note to the minister's contribution on the number of homes that have been given out this fiscal year, and also the number of homes that were given out last fiscal year. And additional to that, a number of lots will be sold to young professionals, giving them a start to build a dream home, Mr. Speaker. And this is commendable by this government. The Future Housing Program is also an initiative that young persons will take advantage of. You will get the added incentive of not having to hustle with contractors. You just contract your financing, and the contractor can build a house for you, ensuring that you don't have to hustle. So my advice to young people, support the housing revolution. Take part, actively engage yourself in the housing revolution program, because a home is an asset that can be with you for life. Under the digital economy, Mr. Speaker, we are seeing tremendous investments being made there also. Gone are the days when 8 to 4 job was the way of life. You now can sit in the comfort of your home and perform duties online, Mr. Speaker. Virtual assistants, Mr. Speaker. This is the trend we're seeing now. And a lot of people are earning significant livelihoods by doing that, Mr. Speaker. And I want to commend the minister and the ministry for seeing it fit in a time like now to distribute over $900,000 in grants, Mr. Speaker, to small businesses to ensure that they can improve on their digital capabilities, Mr. Speaker. This is money well spent, Mr. Speaker. And we expect to see these companies grow bigger and better and make a more meaningful contribution to the development of Dominica going forward. Mr. Speaker, in terms of agriculture, we see agriculture featuring prominent in this budget, as usual. I was particularly interested in the 40 million allocation, Mr. Minister, for the project called Enhancing Agricultural Resilience and National Food Security. I think this is very timely, Mr. Speaker. The issue of food security continues to be a challenge, Mr. Speaker. If we don't take action, we might find ourselves not having enough food to supply our population, Mr. Speaker. And I was really happy to see in the budget a number of initiatives was mentioned that will ensure that we have food security, that eradicate the issues with access to lands and access to markets and stuff like that, Mr. Speaker. And diseases, Mr. Speaker. We have a tissue culture facility opened in 1 mile that produces so many disease-resistant plants, Mr. Speaker. 500,000 per year. Disease-resistant plant, Mr. Speaker. And I think this is a step in the right direction for our agriculture, Mr. Speaker, to ensure food security and to ensure that our farmers can earn a decent living from agriculture, Mr. Speaker. My only advice to especially young people who get involved in agriculture is treat agriculture like a business. You have to do your record keeping, Mr. Speaker. Do your market research. Use modern farming techniques, Mr. Speaker. Don't leave things to chance and hope that you produce. You have to be motivated to make it work, Mr. Speaker. And this is my advice for our agriculture young persons. And of course, Mr. Speaker, our NEP features prominently in the budget estimates. $30 million allocated just for NEP. Mr. Speaker, this is a very important project for the government of Dominica. Our NEP crews are doing a wonderful job, Mr. Speaker, and of course we want to ensure that they continue to do that contribution to Dominica, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to just thank, the ministry staff for their dedication and hard work over the past fiscal year. I think there were challenges in the past year, but I think they worked very hard to ensure that some of the initiatives happen, Mr. Speaker. I want to make mention of my colleague minister who has been championing the ministry and providing the good leadership that require at the ministry level. The PS, very good asset, very knowledgeable and experienced. PS keeping the ministry afloat, Mr. Speaker. All the admin staff, I want to thank them, the departments, the sports division, the local government division that has been really working very hard, these council inaugurations and these events and tents and chairs and back and forth. They have really delivered, Mr. Speaker, over the last fiscal year, and I really want to commend them for all their hard work, Mr. Speaker. Of course, the associations, I want to ask them to continue championing and looking out for our athletes. Our athletes are the important people, so we have to continue to work alongside our athletes. And of course, all our boards and committees, like the Windsor Park Committee and all the other various committees, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank them for their significant contribution over the last year. Mr. Speaker, finally, it will be remiss of me not to put on record my personal gratitude and that of the entire Vickers constituency for the extraordinary leadership shown by our parent, Mr. Speaker. Leadership like that comes once in a lifetime, Mr. Speaker. And some countries will never see leadership like that, Mr. Speaker. Never, ever, Mr. Speaker. And I really want to send a high debt of gratitude to our leader, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Mr. Speaker. We are very privileged to have a leader like that, especially at this time, and we continue to cherish that opportunity, Mr. Speaker. As I have always said, in the Vickers constituency, we don't really have party per se, in the constituency, labor is our culture. Labor is our way of life. Labor is how we empower each other. So we don't really have this back and forth about party. All of us, that's our culture, that's our way of life, Mr. Speaker. And we work to improve. We work to improve the circumstances of every person in the constituency. That's the only way you're going to see progress in a society. Work with each other and ensure that you can build each other, Mr. Speaker. Just to say that the Vickers constituency will continue to benefit from a number of measures presented in the estimates tabled here today, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy for the allocation for upgrading the water supply because there has been some recurrent issues when it comes to that system for a number of years. The transformation of the school surroundings at Vickers is ongoing, and the early childhood facility is now complete. I was advised from education that it will be open in September, so we welcome this with both hands. The lighting, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the lighting has now been installed on the playing field, and we will seek to partake in different sporting activities. And we will continue to benefit from all the social programs in the constituency. That plays a very important role in our development. Our constituency is unique in that we have an aged population, Mr. Speaker. So we have to do what it takes to ensure that all our elderly are well taken care of, Mr. Speaker. And they love to show us when we help them, Mr. Speaker. That is what drives us and motivates us to continue to work on their behalf. The NEP program, as I said, will continue. The housing programs, Mr. Minister, in Penville, where we're building 16 housing units, Vickers, we have 20 housing units, and of course, we have just acquired land in Tibo, where we'll also seek to build housing for the wonderful people of Tibo. Tibo also have the construction of the primary school, which is going very nicely. Honorable Minister, thank you so much for that. Tibo people have been echoing that call for years for the primary school, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy that we're at a stage where we're actually delivering on that promise. And of course, this school will be allocated to special needs, which is very important, Mr. Speaker. There are a number of other initiatives happening in the constituency, Mr. Speaker, but really, as I said, for us, it's about working with each other for the betterment of each other, Mr. Speaker. The projects are important, but the main thing is working out and looking out for each other, Mr. Speaker. And I believe that we have the perfect leader to help us achieve just that, Mr. Speaker. So, after listening to this budget, Mr. Speaker, I am convinced that given the circumstances we now face, we have a working budget, a practical budget, a budget that can help us achieve what we want to achieve, Mr. Speaker, and maintain the livelihoods of every single individual, Mr. Speaker. So I fully support every single aspect of this budget, and I look forward to implementation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this honorable House be adjourned until tomorrow, 30th July, 10:30 a.m.
10:30?
10
10.
a.m. Oscar.
I beg to second the motion, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the House be adjourned until 10 a.m., 30th July. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House is adjourned until 10 a.m., 30th July.